Shahida, welcome to Talk Satellite.
Lovely to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Are UK and European defence communities on the right track, or should they rethink their satellite architectures, considering rapidly evolving counter-space threats?
Great question. So I've jotted some notes down. What I want to do is focus on a model that Air Marshal Paul Godfrey first mentioned when he became the UK's inaugural space commander. And what he mentioned at the time were three words. So he said, own, collaborate and access. So what do we mean by that? So UK government alongside our European partners get together regularly to discuss own, collaborate, access. The UK owns military assets in the form of the Skynet military satellite constellation. So that's the own bit. The collaborate bit is what should we be collaborating with our allies with? So by allies, I mean other institutional partners, the French Space Command, German, etc. The access bit is where commercial industry comes in. Are we doing as a government, as a nation, are we doing enough to access commercial offerings? Is question mark. And now if we put it all together, the own collaborate access, we should be unwrapping them further and we should be seeing actually where are the gaps and what should we be doing more of, what should we be doing less of. So the government is on the right track. We just need to see bolder moves on their part.
Bolder vision. Most governments appear to be heading down the multi-orbit path, the mix of GEO, MEO, LEO backbone. How should nations balance sovereign protected SATCOM with reliance on commercial constellations?
Governments, and let me concentrate on our government, we use the word sovereign in so many ways, in many contexts. And if we overuse the word sovereign, then we limit ourselves regarding the supply chain, regarding intellectual capacity and thinking. And if we do that, then we are limiting what capability we have access to. So we need to understand the strict definition of sovereignty. Sovereignty can extend beyond our borders to our allies, and especially in the context of the various frameworks that we have in place. Frameworks such as NATO, Five Eyes, JEF. Under these frameworks, we have the flexibility to expand on sovereignty, to expand on what capabilities we can lease from our allies. So that addresses the government part of it. Now, the balancing with the commercial, we live in an era where hybrid architectures are now the norm. So what do we mean by hybrid architectures? Well, what I mean is governments cannot keep pace with the developments that are taking place in the commercial world. And so therefore, in order for governments and nations to have the best resilient capabilities, we need to understand what commercial is offering, and we need to understand how do we construct a hybrid architecture that ensures sovereignty, but also grabs the latest capabilities and technologies that are being developed in the commercial sector. And I think we can do that. But we just need to understand that we, in my view, if we continue to apply strict definitions of sovereignty to capabilities beyond our borders, then there is a danger that we will not be acquiring what we need for resilience and security at the time that we need it. Cost is a big factor. Again, if we think about the UK, we all understand that the cost constraints are real. And as a result, that brings into focus more what should we be leasing that we can lease in a safe and secure manner. And then we can understand with the funding that we have available to us, what core capabilities should we be building out on the national level. And that, in my view, goes a long way to understanding how best to use what monies are available.
What does a credible deterrence posture in orbit look like for NATO over the next decade?
So we have to understand and defend. How do we understand the NATO space environment? We understand it by having good information on the space domain. So space situational awareness, what's up there, what are the objects doing, who's operating them, and in what manner are they operating the objects? And I mean across all the orbits, so low, medium, geostationary. And then the defend piece. Defending comes in many ways. Defense isn't just how do we defend in a kinetic way, but actually how do we defend through our messaging? How do we defend with our posturing? Because messaging absolutely can go a long way to deter. And so therefore, all of that together, having a picture of what's going on in space, understanding how we present ourselves, not just to our allies, but also to our adversaries, to say to our adversaries, we know what you're doing, we can see what you're doing, and we're alive to it. Both pieces come together. When they both come together, that helps us, our NATO allies, be knowledgeable about space.
How are governments addressing the ever-growing sophistication on non-kinetic threats such as cyber, electronic warfare and spoofing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So during the time of the Cold War era, I think it's safe to say that we understood who were the traditional good guys, who were the traditional bad guys. We understood how hardware was being used for not just for allied reasons, but how the bad guys were using their hardware. And by hardware, I mean aeroplanes, ships, tanks, and satellites to bad effect. We now live in the era of grey zone warfare. Grey zone equals murky. Grey zone equals not having full visibility of how our adversaries are using their capabilities across all domains: land, sea, air, space, and cyber. And so therefore, we are developing technologies on the ground that allows us to monitor and track their behavior and their movement across all the domains. And so if we concentrate on what we are doing in space with regards to the grey zone behavior, we're developing capabilities that allows us to track movement of missiles from space, and we are developing technologies on the ground that allows us to detect where the jamming is taking place, which, by the way, isn't new technology, but we are getting very good at the speed at which we detect and then the speed at which we take action.
Eyes and ears. How best can systems deliver real-time information to the warfighter?
So I think that's a good one. Again, I think it's important to compare and contrast. Even only 20 years ago, our ISR capability, I would say, were not in their infancy, but they were absolutely not as advanced as they are today. The environment that we operate in now with regards to the space environment, the advancements in surveillance imaging satellites has been absolutely monumental. There's been a paradigm shift in the quality of data that's coming down from space, and then the distribution of the quality the data to the front line. And I think the advancement in the space capabilities, especially in ISR, allows us to have a much clearer picture of what's going on Earth from space. So yes, I would say advancement in technologies in the various platforms, it's allowing us to understand what's going on in real time, which helps us then to make strategic and tactical decisions that safeguards the end user. It's the blended solutions that are available now. So I think absolutely, historically, we've had siloed services that were being transmitted from space, but now we have blended solutions. And the blended solutions allows SATCOM, PNT, and ISR to provide the end-to-end picture that we need on Earth to help us make those very, very hard decisions that ultimately safeguard those who are using it. And the users can be anyone, right? I'm not just referring to frontline commanders, referring to those who are trying to protect the forests, those of us who are driving cars, we drive safer. So the blended solution from space is providing a whole of society security and resilience.
How can industry better support governments in modelling and simulations in a contested space scenarios?
So the US Space Force in Colorado has been wargaming space scenarios for some time. The UK MOD takes part in those war games. That's a great cost to us, in my view, because we have to fly teams over and then we participate in the US and then we bring that knowledge back to the UK. Is there a better way for the UK government to war game? ? I would say yes, but we need to investigate. Yes, and how do we do it? By investigating how does the UK MOD create wargaming scenarios? There are organizations in the UK right now who are providing end-to-end training to the joint services. I'm providing support to one such company called Mass Consultants, UK defense company that's creating cutting-edge defense solutions, which incorporate, and as part of their defense solutions, they are providing end-to-end training. That's just one example of a company. So can our government work with industry partners to expand the existing level of training they are receiving from industry to see actually how do we then put on a synthetic training layer to the existing training? How do we then expand that synthetic training layer, a full wargaming scenario? There are solutions there. Yes, it will cost money. Yes, it will cost time. But in the end, if we can have capabilities in-house, then in the long term, surely we save money because it's here and not there.
The old chestnut of accelerating procurement and delivery throughout the value chain.
So I think this is such an important question that should be asked of every government minister. So in the UK, these are clearly my personal views. In the UK government has been traditionally risk averse. UK government changes the industry supply chain at a very slow pace. And I can understand why governments want to maintain their supply chain because, to my opening remarks, because it minimizes risk. And also, if you already have a contract in place, with an industry partner, then surely you will want to carry on with that contract. But what's going on in the UK is that many of those big defense contracts are actually held between the government and the primes. And then it's then the responsibility of the prime to source a percentage of that contract through the small, medium enterprise or SME community. And so therefore, the question has to be asked, are the primes diversifying their SME supply chain, or are they maintaining the ones that they know and they've worked with previously? So if we are serious as a nation about wanting the best capability, the most innovative capability, then we do need to increase our risk appetite. We do need to diversify our supply chain. We do need to take the SME community more seriously. I understand that SME's technology perhaps is only as good as the next round of funding. And so therefore that relationship between the SME and the prime is fundamental to us acquiring the best capability because the prime can then take it to commercialize it, etc. I mentioned one such company, Mass Consultants. The other SME I'm working with is called Infinite Orbits. It's a French-based company, and Infinite Orbits is doing all things to do with in-orbit life extension and inspector satellites. In the previous answers that I've given you with regards to actually how do we shore up our security and resilience in space, well, we do that also by diversifying what kind of capabilities we have in space. So traditionally, we've had big communication satellites, we've had navigation satellites, surveillance, but more and more, as we now know, adversaries are actually flying very close to our assets because they want to know what are we doing. And so then they are gaining an information advantage. So this Infinite Orbits, they are developing inspector satellites, which also will give us the capability to perform surveillance ops around our backyard. But, should the need arise, we can also deploy them to other space. But essentially, we are now developing innovative capabilities that ensure our security and our resilience. But we need that relationship between the SME and prime and government to work better.
NATO's space architecture, what are the interoperability challenges?
There are many. So I was looking into this. NATO, how many countries are there? 32? 32 countries. So each of us have our own national standards. We have technical architectures. We have security doctrines and policies. Now imagine trying to harmonize these doctrines, standards, policies, and architectures under one umbrella. So immediately we can see where the challenges are. Furthermore, we have the never-ending challenge of procurement and how slow procurement is, both nationally and also transnationally. So to address this, NATO is focusing on initiatives like the Alliance Persistent Surveillance from Space, or APSS program. So it's virtually connecting national assets, and it's also driving through the commercial space strategy, to bolster technical and operational interoperability. So NATO is taking steps to harmonize all the disparate architectures and standards. But I think this is a work in progress, and this is something that will continue. I just want to say that the UK is we're at a very critical juncture as a nation, and so therefore we need to make a decision regarding which way we turn. Which way do we face? Do we turn west and continue to rely on the developments and the messaging that comes from the US, or do we turn east and really look at the European Union? It's the second largest economic bloc in the world, and do we focus our energy on actually what is the European Defence Agency doing? What is NATO space in Europe doing? I understand the relationship with the US is crucial to our defense envelope, especially with regards to our nuclear deterrence. I don't think anyone is having a conversation about severing the relationship with the US. Absolutely not. It's about pivoting. And in my view, we should be pivoting more strongly towards our European partners, and we should be really developing and maturing the conversations on defence and security.
Thank you very much indeed. We wish you every success.
Thank you. It was great talking to you.